Well, aloha, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to PWT Talks NXT. Yeah, it's now a 10-second countdown on our end. So very frightening. 3 times as quick. We got to be ready for this thing. Missed you all the last 2 weeks. It's been a time for me. 3 days in a row, found out about 2 deaths. One of them, somebody I'm very close to, did the eulogy, my grandmother. And one more that will be coming shortly, unfortunately, as a close family member of my wife's is terminal. It has been a lot. Yesterday, so I had gotten back to town. Yesterday, I went back to work, and like the closest thing to comfort in my world right now would be the comfort food of my favorite restaurant, which is like kitty corner from where I work. And I kid you not, overnight, Sunday night, it burned down.
Oh no.
Yeah. I was
I was
like,
I was not expecting the story to go there.
I looked over and I was like, of course, Pub 819 burned down on the day when I would have gone to it just to feel a little better about things. Yikes. First, they said it was going to be $250,000 worth of damage initially after the initial fire. They fought it. They beat it back. And that's where they came up with 2,000. And then it started again overnight because fire had gotten into the walls and they did not know. And it's done for. Okay. Anyway, with that out of the way, Eric Bischoff is coming to NXT. Normally on this show, we start with the main event. But the biggest news coming out of this is Eric Bischoff. I am so sorry, Gigi. Got a lot of love for her, but we have to talk about Eric Bischoff first because this is so weird. JB emails us. Eric Bischoff being interjected in the Trick Holland feud seems rather random and out of left field. I'm really not sure what purpose it is serving. Well, yeah, we're not supposed to know what purpose it serves until next week. You can email us at pwtorchnxt@gmail.com, folks. And that is the first part of his, and we'll get to the other parts later. Yeah, we're not supposed to know. But he basically said he's going to instigate them and make them want to really tear each other apart after next week when he appears. So I don't know. Eric Bischoff can be rage-inducing. That's what he's for. But just seeing him on the screen, I knew who I was looking at right away, even before I saw that his name was there. And I just shook my head and said, did I miss something last week? Or is this truly, yeah, we got Eric Bischoff on a show that was pretty stacked as far as what they gave us match wise, and some pretty heavy angles leading to Deadline, which I basically forgot was in Minneapolis. So I got to get my tickets if I'm going to go to that thing, because it is not far from where I live. It is the same place where I saw Megadeth a couple of years ago, the Armory. It is an awesome, awesome venue for any of you who live near here and have not been there. A super cool venue. Better on the balcony than on the floor, unless you can get really close. So there, I'll give you that for free. But yeah, Eric Bischoff is coming. There's no way around it, Nate. Talk to me about Eric Bischoff.
Yeah, matter of fact, I texted Kelly, when it happened. I was like, I never thought we'd see Eric Bischoff in NXT. He showed up on the screen, and like Kelly said, like it registered in my brain that there was Eric Bischoff up there on the screen. And it took me like 2 or 3 seconds, because I'm like, I know the face, but you don't belong in this setting. I don't understand what the correlation between Eric Bischoff and this feud is. I mean, former head of WCW, came into WWE, Raw general manager for a while and things like that. But I'm not opposed to it by any stretch of the imagination, but like JB said in his email, it does seem like a little random and out of left field. There's nothing to me that, like I said, there's nothing to me that ties him to them. Maybe we'll understand a little bit more next week. The only thing, and this might be a bit of a reach, but one of the things that I can think about, is one of the words that I think about when I think of Eric Bischoff is controversy, and maybe that's why they're bringing him in. This is a controversial angle between Trick Williams and Ridge Holland. There's a lot on the line after the whole Chase U implosion and all of that. Or not necessarily a lot on the line, but there's kind of a lot of backstory and a lot of heat there because of that Chase U implosion. So that's the only thing that I can think of that kind of even remotely correlates him to this. But with all of that said, I'm here for it. I don't dislike it. I'm a sucker for nostalgia, because hey, here I am. I'm getting closer to 40 than I am 30. So and with the state of the world and things, I like to look back on the good times in my past. So like I said, I'm a sucker for nostalgia and stuff. So cool to see, and I'm interested to see how he interjects himself next week. And is he going to maybe I doubt he'll be a special referee or anything like that, but what I am invested to see what he's going to bring and add to this this main event feud.
Ridge and Trick were 12 and 6 years old when WCW ended.
Wow.
So so it's possible that they saw some of it. Yeah, Trick was born about a year before the first episode of Monday Nitro.
May 26, 1994.
Yep. I am.
Yeah.
He's actually a little bit older than I would have thought. He looks this old, but I don't know. They have so many people on this show that are like 22. It seems like 30 feels old, and Ridge is 36, which I also didn't know, even though he looks that. So there you go. He will appear. So will X-Pac. X-Pac always was one of my favorites. He's also a fairly accessible guy in comparison to a lot of wrestlers. I've had minor exchanges with him online over the years. Not recently, but long ago, and ran into him once after a show. Gracious guy, cool guy. So looking forward to what he does as well. That is one where if they wanted to tie him to Deadline in some way, they certainly could, because he lives here. He stayed here in Minnesota, I believe, since he does tweet a lot about flying around and being in MSP airport quite a bit here in town. So I assume that he still lives here. There you go. Gigi Dolan, she returned as well. Main event, Tatum Paxley versus Fallon Henley for the Women's North American Championship. This went 10:55. Fallon Henley using the numbers for Fatal Influence to stay on top of this one. And of course, she gets the win. They heavily teased this moment earlier in the show where, sorry, my setup is different from norm. So kind of figuring it out here. Gigi was heavily teased when Tatum was playing with her dolls, set down a redheaded doll, and then a hand reached out and grabbed it, and you knew who that was going to be. That was indeed Gigi Dolan, who made the save, and the two baby faces fought off the three heels. So there you go. Lots of women are being pushed in this division, a lot, and that is going to be hard to sustain. We've got this going on. We've got the three new women. We've got everybody we got Lola Vice doing what she's doing. being kind of de-emphasized a tiny bit right now, although she's got her thing going on with Jada Parker. Kelani's still getting her flowers. There's so much going on with this division, and they're still finding ways to feature these women. Even Nikita Lyons and Adriana Rizzo kind of have their feud, and Nikita sort of transitioning now to Carmen Petrovich. And these feuds are kind of on the bottom, but they're getting the people on the bottom into feuds rather than just having them be bottom feeders and losers. So something wrestling at its best always has a good mid card, because then the whole show is worth watching and you don't have a bunch of cannon fodder, popcorn enemies for the top three guys. I really like what's happening right now with the women's division. Yeah, real bold statement right there. You heard it here, folks. Good wrestling in the women's division in NXT. But anyway, really cool stuff, and glad to see this from Gigi, and hoping she's taken a big step forward upon her return, because I always dug what I thought she could do. Let's see her do it. So main event, Nate, 10:55.
You know, like you said, the women's roster, women's division in NXT right now is absolutely stacked. I think it was last week I was talking about this, but I mean, you know, the women's division has been so cyclical in NXT. We go from having a mediocre women's division to having an amazing women's division to a mediocre women's division to an amazing women's division. And it wasn't that long ago where it was relatively mediocre. It's so cool to see it back in kind of the limelight, and having so many upcoming stars in the division. It's the women are some of my favorite your favorite acts on NXT right now. Tatum Paxley being one of them. Now, I got to give it to you, because I did not know who picked up the doll earlier in that segment right before the main event match. So I was actually trying to figure out who that might have been. In my mind, I'm thinking maybe Wendy Chu, maybe Rosemary or something like that. But that makes a lot of sense that it was a foreshadowing for Gigi Dolan, coming in here later on in the night. It's funny because the beginning of the show, I started thinking about Halloween Havoc, and Gigi Dolan. She was the host of Halloween Havoc, or I don't know if she was really the host, but she kind of played that role in some of the video packages that they had. And I was kind of wondering, like, when is she going to be back? Like, that's the only, they had her show up there. She hasn't come, and then here she is at the end of the show. Really glad to see her back, and kind of reinvigorate that feud with JC Jane. It's been a while since she's been on TV. So great to see her come back. She looks great. And I think that, not only that, but the fans had a great reaction to her. Why is my camera so blurry right now? There we go. It keeps auto focusing. That's weird. But what was I going to say? Yeah, Gigi Dolan. The fan reaction to her, the crowd reaction to her was a lot more than I expected it to be. I didn't really expect it to be. I kind of expect it to be somewhat lukewarm. I mean, she was a pretty big star with, Fatal Attraction. No, not Fatal Attraction. Oh my God.
Toxic Attraction.
Toxic Attraction. Thank you. So, it doesn't surprise me, I guess, but again, a bigger reaction than I thought, which I think it's a great thing. Definitely not a bad thing by any stretch of imagination. I'm wondering if we're going to see some sort of like a 3-on-3 match between, Fatal Influence and, these two and an additional opponent, or additional partner for them, I guess. The match itself, though, I thought was really good. I thought Tatum and Fallon had some good chemistry out there. I'm really liking what Tatum Paxley is doing. She's taking this kind of just, I don't want to say dark character. It's a little dark, but it's more just weird and a little bizarre, and I love it. She's again playing with those dolls, almost like they're voodoo dolls or something, but they're not. It's just kind of her sitting in the back playing dollhouse, and weird gimmick, but weird gimmicks get over, and weird gimmicks work in wrestling. So I'm I like the way they're presenting it. It's getting over with the fans. It's getting over with the crowd. So I think they should keep rolling with it. Um, I I really wanted to see her capture NXT Gold tonight, but uh, I knew there was a slim chance that we would see Fallon Henley lose that title. I mean, she's still a fairly new champion, so and she's somebody that I feel like NXT and WWE as a whole probably has some solid plans for in the near future. Um, especially once she gets up to the main roster, she's somebody that I feel like you can kind of lean on. She's already like a veteran in NXT, even though she's still, I don't know, I still think of her as someone that's relatively new, but I mean, she's been around for a few years now. Um, so I think she's somebody that they can kind of anchor either a women's division around at some point, being a champion, whether it be in NXT or on the main roster. And when I say champion, I don't mean North American. I mean, NXT champion or women's champion up on the main roster. But like I said, I don't think it was the time for her to lose the title here. I again would have liked to see Fallon maybe, or not Fallon, Tatum get the gold, but it is what it is. There was something I was going to say about JC Jane, and I can't remember what it was. So move on, and if I think about it, I'll get back to it.
Brock Benningfield in the chat says Paxley hit a beautiful 450 tonight. She sure did. Her stuff is looking really clean and crisp of late. It actually has for a long time, but she's getting more minutes to show it off now. Brock also said in the chat, will Mandy Rose ever return to wrestling? I don't know. Did she ever start? Boom, got her roasted. Honestly, though, if I had to guess, I would say no. I think she's moved on. While admitting I'm not following what she does. Doing the whole OnlyFans thing, and I do not partake. So good for her. I don't know how long. I mean, she had a ton of subscribers, I heard, right out of the gate, because of course she did. But when she's no longer in the public eye, is that still exciting for people? Do they think she's all that enough? I don't know. I think that's a really good question. I hadn't really even thought about Mandy returning, because I don't see her making like some great fit in another major promotion right now. I don't know that AEW would want her. I can't see any of the Japanese promotions wanting her, or the British ones wanting her. Maybe American Indies. And the way she left this company was, I don't know, odd to say the least. Go ahead, Nate.
So I actually just looked this up because I wanted to make sure I was right, but I remembered seeing something a few months ago about her saying that she was not sure about whether or not she was going to be ever making a return to wrestling. She's been asked quite a few times, to show up for random independents and things like that. And I guess she did, from what I just read, that she did one appearance, like a 2-second run in and something, but she said she was kind of even iffy if she wanted to do that. She decided to, but that's been the one and only time she's actually stepped into a ring, or made any sort of like wrestling appearance since leaving NXT. So I don't see a return for her in the near future anyway. Never say never in wrestling. I never thought we'd see Eric Bischoff come in NXT. So it's certainly possible, but I would not put it on your bingo card Let's put it that way.
And you need reps. And her last like 8-9 months in wrestling were as a champion. So she was getting reps. She was getting a lot of chances to do things. And it was only through lots and lots of scenes and lots of matches that she had become kind of okay at both. And like not good, but she was kind of okay at both. And she was still pretty bad on the mic. But she would have to kind of start over and go through that process again. I mean, she hadn't been deemed good enough to go to the main roster. So unless they do a bunch of behind the scenes stuff to surprise bring her up at the main roster, I don't know. I could see a very brief Royal Rumble appearance. Like they like to do a couple of surprise appearances, but I don't know that I see anything beyond that. But
yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay, let's go to our opener, Axiom versus Ethan Page. I go to this because by far the longest match of the night at 16:45. That is a very long opener and a long NXT match, period. Ethan Page, of course, does win this. Axiom and Nathan Fraser just can't get along, Nate. We've been talking about that for a real long time. Afterwards, Fraser gets involved. So does Wesley. So does Javon Evans, of course, because they are all in the Iron Survivor match. I had typed very shortly after the end of the women's one that if there's a second chance, then Jordan's definitely getting in. But all those women are really talented, so it could be any of them. The only one it won't be is Jada Parker because they're going to save Parker for Lola Vice. And I think maybe Vice costs her the match next week when we get 2 4-ways that I just realized I'll have to recap. 4-ways are always real fun to try to keep up with. So at any rate, Ethan Page wins with not an ego's edge. It was a hard lariat as Axiom was attempting to do the
golden ratio.
Golden ratio. Thank you. So yeah, pretty good stuff here too. Although my match of the night is reserved for a different one on our opener, Nate.
So first off, I want to just say hi to Brian Alston and to enjoy your Thanksgiving as well. I didn't notice you said that in the chat 10 minutes ago, so I wanted to at least acknowledge it. Hey, everybody have a happy Thanksgiving for those of you in the United States who celebrate it, for that matter. Nathan Fraser versus Axiom versus Ethan Page. So this, again, great match. Nothing to complain about here. Exactly what you'd expect out of these two guys. Excuse me. I'm also getting over being sick for the last 4 days, so bear with me. But what I like about this is the ongoing story with Nathan Fraser and Axiom. And one of the things that I have been pretty vocal about for months and months and months at this point is kind of getting sick of Nathan Fraser and Axiom, right? And wanting them to move on and do something different. And during this match tonight, I started thinking to myself, like, this might be the end for Nathan Fraser and Axiom. Like, we're seeing some definite like dissension in the ranks, if you will, right? And I started to think about it, and I'm like, that kind of sucks. Like, and I'm like, wow, maybe I actually do care about this tag team. So a little bit of a change of heart for me for Nathan Fraser and Axiom, I think, here tonight. I don't know why. I'm still processing that, but I think it's because of what they're doing here. We've got and again, the entire time they've been a tag team, they've been almost still friendly rivals. That's how they became a tag team in the first place, right? But right now, there's kind of every week there's this little like jab, this little poke, like will something boil over, and will it really start to get under the skin of one of the two of them. With and like tonight, I think it was at the end of this match when everybody came out. Wesley, Javon Evans, they came out and kind of started talking about the Iron Survivor Challenge, and Axiom said, or Nathan Frazier said something about how Axiom wasn't I'm looking at your report, wasn't the driving force in their tag team. And Axiom's like, whoa, hey, well, and like, I kind of know what Nathan Frazier meant was, we work together, and it's not, neither one of us is a driving force. But obviously Axiom took it as like, oh, hey, what do you mean? You're better than me? And so we keep getting those those little points here, and I like the way that they're doing it. It's, I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but I guess it's a slow build, and the way that they're kind of building it is, I think is probably going to finally boil over once they lose these NXT tag titles, especially if they're going to be defending the tag titles if they're both in the Iron Survivor Challenge. Now, we don't know if both of them will be in the Iron Survivor Challenge. We have Axiom potentially in a second chance match. It kind of seemed like they insinuated that here tonight. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they actually officially announced a second chance yet. But if they do both wind up in this match,
Ava
they're going
did.
to have.
Yeah.
Okay, she did. All right. But so if they do both wind up in the Iron Survivor Challenge match, then later in the night or earlier in the night, one of the two, I'm assuming it'll be later in the night, that they're going to defend the tag team titles. Most likely, they're probably going to lose them. I'd be very surprised if they wind up, going, from the Iron Survivor Challenge, which their billing is like this brutal, kind of, tough match. So it's kind of like in kayfabe, like almost getting out of like a Hell in a Cell or something. That's kind of the type of chaos and damage that I'm thinking of, in the way that they're billing the Iron Survivor. So to then go on and perform in a tag team match later in the night, chances are, at least if you're thinking kayfabe, they're probably not going to win. At that point, I think we're going to finally see the two of them come to a head and maybe go back to their initial singles feud, Axiom versus Nathan Frazier, and kind of go from there. I'm interested in that. I'm a lot more interested in that than I thought I would be. As I said earlier, like this wasn't an angle that was really hooking me until now. But I think once we get there, I don't know who's going to turn heel, because I could make a case for either one, but I think, like, personally, I think it might be Nathan Frazier. I think it might be easier for him to turn heel than Axiom, and the only reason I say that is mostly because of facial expressions. That's really my only. Axiom doesn't have facial expressions; he's got a mask. So, and that's literally the only tipping point for me. So it's still kind of 49-51, I guess. But I think it would be easy for them to kind of, one of them to become a heel, obviously, get into that feud, and give us a really good story to kind of finally put the Nathan Frazier Axiom story to bed. They could come back to it, like, once they, let's say they both make it up to the main roster in the next year or two, right? They could come back to it. NXT is now more canon in WWE than it used to be, now that Shawn Michaels and Triple H are actually working as a cohesive unit, rather than Vince kind of never paying attention to NXT and just doing whatever the hell he wanted to do with the gimmick once he got it up to the main roster. Karrion Kross and his X thing and the mask and all of that. That's perfect example of that. So yeah, I dig this. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the two of them, and with the Iron Survivor Challenge match, in general. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
And for me, Nathan Fraser is so much the instigator that it seems too obvious that he'd be the heel. So I'm almost expecting him to finally go too far and then Axiom super kick him through the barbershop window. I can see a little twist here, a Tatanka twist, as they say. Nobody says that, but I'm gonna
But
say
you
it.
do.
So there you go. That was that match. Let's go to the other Iron Survivor challenge qualifier. Kalani Jordan versus Julia. There wasn't a damn thing wrong with this match. 12-27 of bliss. This was my match of the night. And I liked the wrestling on tonight's show. I thought that this show was pretty nice. They kept this to 5 matches. They gave them all decent time. Vice Sinclair was fairly short. They always have one, at least one right around 4.5 minutes, sometimes as many as 3 that are right around 4.5 minutes. They love that amount of time for some reason, but this one went 12.5. Julia over Jordan, but they did not make Jordan look weak. Julia had to really fight to get her in a submission spot, and indeed Jordan fought all of those off, and Julia had to hit her Northern Lights bomb in order to secure her spot. So now we've got Sol Ruka and the 3 new women, Julia, Zarya, and Stephanie Vicker, all in that match, with one more to be added out of those 4 who lost. And gosh, you can make calls for any of the 4. It's that stacked in this division right now, of women who could show up here. I think one of the Iron Survivor Challenge matches will go on last. They have the other 2 times. You could do, I think, both other times. At least once they did, with I think Grayson Waller at the end. But
Yeah, I think you're right.
you've got the men and the women, and it just seems like with the hype around these particular women, it just seems like it would be a big mistake not to put them on last. I also think there's more doubt there because we don't know where they slot any of these women, really. We haven't seen them be on the opposite sides of one another, and we're about to see that. So 4 baby faces in the match. So does the match need a heel? I guess that's the question. You would think so, but with Roxanne being super heel, yeah. Do you have one?
Who are the
Do you need one?
4 who are the 4 women that are the TBD right now that
That
could
are
be in the second chance?
Cora Jade, Jada Parker, um, Kalani Jordan, and Ren Sinclair.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to
Yeah, go
think.
ahead. It's all you.
I'm trying to think of who out of the 4 of them who I think might make it but I mean you could make a solid case for any of them, including Kalani after tonight. I mean with and I think Kalani probably makes the most sense because Jada Parker, she's got a thing going on with Lola Vice. We're probably going to wind up seeing Jada Parker versus Lola Vice in an underground match. So she pointed that out tonight. So I think it's probably going to wind up being Kalani Jordan as the 5th in the Iron Survivor Challenge. And if one of the Iron Survivor challenges does go on last, it probably will be the women for one of the reasons I mentioned earlier, in the fact that Nathan Frazier and Axiom will be defending the tag team titles, and Nathan Frazier and Axiom might be both in the men's Iron Survivor Challenge. So I think for storyline, they're probably going to open with the men's Iron Survivor Challenge. Even if Axiom's not in it, Nathan Frazier's in it. So Nathan Frazier pulling double duty, and maybe that's the impetus for the implosion between Nathan Frazier and Axiom too, right? Not that we're talking about them again. I just spent a long time talking about them, but maybe it's the fact that Nathan Frazier pulls double duty. He's the one to lose the title, and Axiom gets pissed, and that's that's kind of it. But as far as the which match we were talking about? Yeah, Kalani Jordan and Julia. As far as this match goes, I thought this match is fantastic. For me, this was my match of the night. Um, Kalani Jordan is so goddamn good. She's especially for just the level of experience that she has. Like, I would expect her to have 5 years under her belt or something like that at this point. She just gets it. And of course, being in the ring with somebody as good as Julia, certainly helps. It makes life a lot easier for her in the ring, I'm sure. But I mean, the entire time the crowd absolutely into this match. I was into this match. And I mean, a lot of times, I'm watching NXT, but I'm also doing something else. I'm an ADD kid, so sitting down and just doing like one thing is tough. I got to kind of keep a couple things going. But I was actually into this. I'm watching, watched basically watched bell to bell, really without taking my eyes off of it. Um, so yeah, like I said, I think no matter which way they go with the fifth member, I guess you can make a case for most of them, but I do think it's going to be Kalani Jordan, fifth member in that Iron Survivor Challenge. Julia, actually, before I say something about Julia, Brock in the chat says, I think Kalani stood toe to toe with Julia, and 100%. I could not agree more. She looked like she belonged in the ring with somebody to the caliber of Julia. And to some people in NXT that may not be super familiar with Julia, I mean, I'm kind of, I guess, one of them. I've looked up some of her older stuff at this point, but for some of the people in NXT that may not understand the star that Julia is, that may not be that big of a deal, but yeah, for her to stand toe to toe with somebody like Julia is big. Kalani, as young as she is, I think the sky is absolutely the limit for her in this company or in this business if she winds up stepping out of this company at some point.
Okay, so stick with the women. Lola Vice versus Ren Sinclair. This was a match that I actually really dug also. A lot of good reversals and chain sequences here. Both very technical wrestlers. Lola works in a lot of technique along with the striking, and Ren is just pure technique, British style wrestling, which is kind of a nod to Charles, as she insists on calling him. So Ren gets beat here. She isn't there when Ava announces the second chances. So she has her scene with Charlie Dempsey later on, where he tells her, and she of course freaks out because she has to beat those three women all at once if she wants a spot. It seems like Ren Sinclair is in a good enough spot to get TV time, but she's still in a wait her turn kind of spot. When there's room for you to win matches, we'll have you win matches, but there's no room for that right now. But I dare say I'd pull the trigger on her and put her into this match. Jada, the sky's the limit, but Jada's got her thing with Lola. They gotta blow that off, and that doesn't have to be part of the Iron Survivor to be a big deal. So I would love to see it if it was Ren, but that said, I'd love to see any of them. And Kalani is probably the best wrestler of them. She's so smooth. It just did not take Kalani very long to get as smooth as she is. Just butter in there. So there you go. So on that match, and then we'll talk about the Ava stuff that ended up being Eddie Thorpe stuff after that.
So one of the things that I really like about the Lola Vice, well, it's more Ren Sinclair, is the fact that is really the story they're telling with Ren Sinclair right now. She keeps getting herself into these positions. Last week was Jada Parker, this week Lola Vice, and she keep, how did I get myself into this situation? And then, they're also playing that up on commentary. How did she get herself into this situation? And I think I think it's going to play into this whole thing with no quarter catch crew. I have a feeling it's next week or maybe after one more loss or something like that. Um, uh, we're going to see no quarter catch crew, the guys in no quarter catch crew come up to her and you'd be like, hey, you got to be better, or maybe she's going to be like, I've got to be better, and she approaches the guys and they put her through like a boot camp or something like that to uh, kind of give her a little bit more confidence, but some more technical skills in the ring. But I have a feeling that's probably where they're going to go with that, simply just because of those story beats that they hit earlier in the night. I thought you were raising your hand to ask a question. That was weird.
I forgot that I was on screen because this wasn't a video thing. My daughter had asked me a question via text because she knows I'm doing a podcast, and then she poked her head around the door, and I gave the biggest, dumbest thumbs up I could, and because that's what I do. It's what we do with each other. Yeah, I forgot there was a video element to this. I'll go ahead and remove myself.
I thought you were like trying to get my attention or something. But yeah, so like I said, that's one of the things I really like right now going on with Ren Sinclair is that story that they're telling with her. Because I think she's a great talent. And they've obviously they need to kind of build her up to be more of a star. Kind of from just being another face in the women's division, and I think that could be a good way to do it for her. With Lola Vice, obviously I think this was more of a way to get her to the match with Jada Parker at Underground. Obviously, Ren Sinclair faced Jada Parker last week. Lola Vice kind of filling that role this week, but Lola and Jada, they're the ones that have that feud. So I think this was kind of a way for her to just get a quick win, a quick brutal win. Even though she did get her head smashed into those steel steps, which looked pretty brutal. I'm not gonna lie, she made it look pretty good. But yeah, I don't have a whole heck of a lot more to say about this match, but for what it was in the 4 minutes and 24 seconds that it was, I think they got a lot in here. Thinking back on the match, it felt a lot longer than that, and not in a bad way. They fit so much in that 4 minutes that, in a good way, that I think benefited both of them.
And I think it very much existed to get over the out of nowhere aspect of the backfist that that Lola hits. Okay, so second chance matches were announced. Tag team battle royal was announced because the tag teams just keep brawling. It'll be 6 different tag teams in that thing. Nobody from Chase U, so if they're doing that, they are keeping that real close to the vest. They made sure not to feature those guys other than the thing they did with Andre. So then Eddie Thorpe, of course, very annoyed that he was the only one who lost via interference, and he was mad about this, put his hand on Ava as she tried to go into her office, and she was not happy about this, and the door ended up getting slammed into her by some of the brawling tag teams. And then they had Shawn Michaels come out and act the fool by acting like Eddie Thorpe was the one who hurt her when he was in fact not. Now, if he had left her alone, she wouldn't have been in the line of fire, but it wasn't him who charged into that door. Then the announcers, they decided to make them both dumb instead of having one being like, well, I mean, the guys who brawled into her are at fault because they were brawling right by her. But no, there was no conscience here. Nobody even trying to play the devil's advocate. So they're trying to get Eddie all this heel heat, and some of it is a little false. Go ahead.
I was going to say, well, to be fair, if you saw the fire that was in Shawn Michaels' eyes and he was your boss, wouldn't you agree with him too?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, he threw up Eddie to the wall, and Eddie got real docile then. So I mean, they got away with showing Shawn as this very important authority figure and everything like that. Um, Kind of funny to think about it in terms of if this was a real thing. You got yourself in one moment on the bad side of Shawn Michaels and The Rock's daughter. Like, with,
Yeah, right.
yeah, I mean, I guess that's one way to get a guy over. The other way would have been to just do what they were doing and have him win some matches instead of lose matches to Lexis King, but whatever. They did what they did, so now they're in the position that they're in. But it seems like they have, I hope, big plans, but at any rate, plans. I just like the fact that we're in an era where there are plans for everybody, be they big or small, high or low on the card. So there's a reason to care about everyone, even if it's not their turn to be on top. So tag teams brawl, destroyed some cars. That was fun. And surprising that they did that on this one. So yeah, cars, tag teams, Eddie Thorpe, Ava. Talk about all of it, Nate.
Oh God. So I mean, this whole tag team thing's been going on now for a few weeks. These just tag team brawling all over the place, and I'm hoping this is the last week of it because I don't know how many more weeks of this can we actually, take. Um, but I have a feeling we're probably going to see at least one more week of it next week, and then um, we'll go from there. But I think after deadline, that'll stop. With let's see, with the whole Ava situation. I mean, I don't know who it was that actually hit the door. I couldn't tell. So I don't know whose fault it really is, but I I can kind of understand, and it was something that Kelly said a minute ago, was if Eddie didn't grab Ava and pull her back, she wouldn't have been in the line of fire to get hit in the first place. So I can understand Shawn being a little bit pissed at him over that. But it was good to see Shawn Michaels come out and fire up like that and throw Eddie up against a wall. Like, I mean, one of Shawn, one of the greatest of all times, one of my favorites as a kid. So just to kind of see like a little glint of the Heartbreak Kid, come out like that was just really cool to see. Oh my God, I hope this cough goes away soon. But with with Ava, I'm assuming they're not gonna like write her off for a week or something like that. I can't imagine like she won't be on TV next week, and but I mean maybe they will to sell the injury. I don't know. I'm kind of hoping they don't because I mean she was a wrestler. She's not right now, but I mean she's been in the ring, so it's like I don't know. You think of somebody that's a wrestler taking a bump like that backstage. They've got a little more HP than everybody else, right? So like not a referee. A referee has one hit point and they go down. Backstage official, one hit point, they go down. So yeah, I don't have a whole heck of a lot more to say here. I talked a lot about the tag team stuff last week, and not a whole lot's changed we haven't already discussed tonight.
The one other match was Tony D'Angelo defending his North American Championship against Shawn Spears. No Obafemi again. Are we just waiting for his main roster call up because there's nothing left to be done?
I think so.
I think so too. Maybe they'll have him show up at a big spot. I guess the only thing you could be saving him for now is maybe you run the championship match last at deadline and Trick wins, but then Obafemi just comes out and utterly demolishes him. You could do that. So,
Yep, that's
I don't know.
certainly a possibility.
Uh,
The hell?
I mean, they kind of did the tease with him and Nikita Lyons, which just would have been death for him. And now I'm worried that Nikita's getting into this issue with Ashante and Carmen, and technically it could be a mixed tag. And Oba could be circling the drain in that feud. Let's hope not. Tony D'Angelo versus Shawn Spears. Shawn Spears at this stage of his career, no matter the situation, no matter his opponent doing an injury angle, I just don't see any chance that he's winning. He's got a group that now has a third member, but none of them ever win their matches. So Nico, I wouldn't have known this guy's name if it was not said by Vic. I wasn't able to see the last 2 weeks, but I did read your recaps. Was Nico? What did Nico do before?
So
this?
Nico showed up a couple weeks ago in like a little backstage segment. It might have even been like 3 or 4 weeks ago. It was a little while ago. He's also had a level up match against Luca. It was either last week or the week before. I don't remember, but that's pretty much it so far. Like he's still a pretty new character.
Yeah. So I don't know. This was my technical first impression of him because whenever he was on before, apparently I missed it. He looked like every nameless, faceless indie wrestler. That was what I thought he looked like.
Yep.
Hate to say it, but he does. So hopefully there's something going on charisma wise, because look wise, he's just a dude. Tony D over Shawn in 8:33. He's kayfabing a bad knee, but he still gets to win. So I guess that was your big chance, Shawn Spears. And Tony D'Angelo continues to be one of those guys who almost always has a belt for some damn reason. Somebody, and I believe it was Brian Alston in his email to me, said, when Tony D'Angelo wins the NXT championship, he'll be the only wrestler to have won all current NXT titles, NXT Tag, North American, and Heritage Cup. That is true. And horrifying. So on that, I take pot shots at him. He's not actively bad. He just bores me. Which I guess is bad, but it's that, like, I don't get mad at the stuff. I just my mind just kind of wanders when he's on. And to remind myself to watch and recap the match. So there you go. D'Angelo over Spears, Nate.
Of course, as soon as I go to talk, super bad chest cold, like 3 days straight of 100 plus fever. So I didn't even think I was going to do the show tonight. So anyway, that's enough about that. Tony D'Angelo, Shawn Spears. So I'm not going to lie. I thought Shawn Spears might have won this. From kind of, coming into this match, I thought Shawn Spears was going to win, and I wasn't necessarily like in love with the idea, but reason being is the story they were telling up to this. Brooks Jensen kind of, Shawn Spears using Brooks Jensen to kind of get this title shot and things like that, and kind of pulling some strings backstage, being a bit of a puppeteer, if you will, and kind of slyly working his way into this match. So I was kind of thinking like, all right, this might be a good way to get Shawn Spears a little bit more notoriety, credibility, and as well as Brooks Jensen for that matter, right? Brooks is, I wouldn't say he's been floundering ever since splitting up with Josh Briggs, but he's been floundering a little bit. This whole thing with Shawn Spears has been a good thing for him, but again, as Kelly just said, they lose all the time. So I was thinking, maybe they're going to give us a bit of a shock, an upset win here tonight, and see Shawn Spears take the title and kind of go in a bit of a different direction with the North American title. And it made sense. but obviously that's not the direction they went. Um, I'm totally fine with it. Tony D'Angelo, as North American champion, he did defeat Obafemi, longest reigning North American champion of all time. So, for him to lose the title in a pretty short order, I don't know. I don't want to say it kind of nullifies, maybe not nullifies, but it diminishes that win a little bit. It would just be like Brock Lesnar beating the Undertaker streak and then losing the next night on Raw or something like that. It'd be kind of diminishing that big victory. So I guess that definitely makes sense. Obviously we're going to see, I think, at Deadline. No, there's no match for him announced at Deadline. I was thinking of something else. But I mean, there could still be something, for him at Deadline, to defend the title. We only have 4 matches right now announced. We have the 2 Iron Survivor challenges, Trick Williams versus Ridge Holland, and then the tag team title match. So there could certainly be at least one more. Usually they like to go with a 5-match card.
They do, but I think these have been 4-match cards before because of the length of the Iron Survivor challenges.
Yeah, that could certainly be.
Because those are automatically like 25 minutes at the very least, I think.
No,
I don't remember now.
So the first one was a 7-match card, and the last year was also a 7-match card.
You made both of those things up.
I didn't make Wikipedia up.
Some of those must have been non-televised. All right, go on.
Yeah, yes, but yeah. So I totally lost my train of thought, which does not take much, as anybody who's listened to the show for any length of time knows. But yeah, not much more to say, I guess, really about this. Nico Vance, he's been around. He's been around for a couple months now. I think I was looking this up actually during the show. He got signed in May of 2023. But he hadn't really done a whole heck of a lot up until this year. Mostly on Level Up. But this, I think this was really his second time appearing on main roster NXT, if you want to call it that, compared to Level Up. So not much about this guy. Like looking up his history on Cage Match. I mean, there's nothing outside of NXT. So he's definitely a newbie. But I think he even though he does have a generic look, I think he does have a good look. I would, if they didn't say his name was Nico, I wouldn't have known who the hell it was. So once they said Nico, I'm like, oh yeah, the dude from a couple weeks ago. But yeah, I definitely would not have recognized him otherwise. I'm going to be interested to see how Shawn Spears kind of plays that puppeteer now that he has 2 puppets. I don't know. I really like Shawn Spears' role right now in NXT. He had a really candid interview with Chris Van Vliet a handful of weeks ago. It came out, and he actually confirmed what I originally had suspected his role was in NXT. Is he basically came in to be an on-air talent, but mostly to work backstage with with other talents, work with Shawn Michaels to kind of help, and I forget all of the details, so I might be getting some of it wrong, but work with Shawn Michaels to help some of the other talents out and things like that. So so I don't ever see Shawn Michaels I don't ever see Shawn Spears being a top level talent in NXT, but I don't think that's the goal, and that's not what his role is. His role is to be kind of a quasi enhancement talent, to get some heat on himself so he can get some, kind of pass that on to others. And I think that role suits him very, very, very well.
part of JB, the other parts of JB's email are as follows. The NXT parking lot continues to maintain its reputation as the most dangerous place in pro wrestling. Yeah, that and Ava's office apparently now. And his
Yeah.
other was, who was the person calling out to Andre Chase at the end of his vignette? Is this a way to somehow circumvent the match stipulation to keep Chase in NXT? Or is this leading to a main roster angle? For some reason, the main roster angle didn't occur to me. It should have, but it didn't. If you wanted, you could do something from the reverse camera angle and show that, and then have it from the angle of the other guy, and like walking through, and then seeing Chase and calling him there. I think it is interesting that nobody else in Chase U is on TV right now, that none of the rest of them showed up. So maybe that's to sell the angle, but maybe that's because you don't want them stuck in storylines if they're going to bring up the entire faction, which I guess they could. I don't know. I think JB got me thinking, and maybe he's just putting words in my mouth here. He's got me thinking that maybe this could be a main roster angle, Nate.
So Kevin and I talked about this a lot last week, and we both agreed that it could definitely be a main roster call up. I tend to think this might be more of a way to write them off for a little bit, maybe to just give them a break after being on TV pretty much every week for the past year or so. And, kind of, well, not only that, but, we've also talked a little bit about Chase U getting a little stale after a while. So this might be a way to just get them off NXT TV for a month or two, and then they come back in a bigger, better way. We were joking, maybe they'll have the College of Andre Chase or something like that. They'll rename it and find a loophole or something, a name probably wouldn't be as catchy as Chase U, but yeah, we'll obviously see where that goes. If it does lead to a main roster call up, I'm worried, for a couple different reasons. The first reason being is I don't know if this is a main roster gimmick. This, as we've seen, a lot of these gimmicks that really work well in NXT. I'm Elias. Well, actually, Elias was more of a main roster. That was actually a very, very bad example of what I was trying to talk about. But a lot of some of these gimmicks, and of course, I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but we all know that there have been a number of gimmicks in NXT that have got over, and they've been, amazing down in NXT, and they get up to the main roster. And even if they push them, the main roster audience doesn't quite understand it because they didn't follow their story in NXT. And I would just be a little worried that if they get called up to the main roster and there's not a good explanation of who Chase University is, that a lot of people be like, oh, what is this, like a new age spirit squad or something, and people wouldn't necessarily take them seriously. And if they don't get called up as Chase U and they get called up individually, right? Like Andre Chase, I don't know, I mean, he's been kind of this Chase University gimmick for so long. I don't know. I don't know how he would necessarily fare on the main roster. Thea Hale on the main roster, I think would make her way and should be fine. Same thing with Duke Hudson. I think he'd probably be able to find his way. But Riley Osborne, he's still way too new. I don't think he should go up to the main roster unless it is with the entire group, and they have a good way to debut the entire group that's going to get them over. I tend to think that this is, like I said, I tend to think this is going to be a way to write them off TV for a little while, and then have them come back in like a brute force to get back at Ridge Holland. And the fact that we had somebody call out and to try and answer JB's question, I have no idea who that was. So again, try to answer your question. But they had somebody call out to Chase, right at the end of that segment. That kind of plays into what I'm thinking. that maybe this isn't the end for Chase University here in NXT.
You say they've been on for every week for a year or so. It's 3 years.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I thought that was about right, and it turned out to be almost exactly. It's a little more. July 20th, 2021 episode of NXT. That's where Andre Chase was beaten by Odyssey Jones in the first round of the NXT Breakout Tournament. That breakout tournament doesn't feel old to me, but considering he's been doing this for 3 years and Odyssey's now not in the company for some real weird reasons. I guess it was quite a while ago. The one other person it could be, I guess, is Bodie Hayward. I'm the one person keeping him alive, bringing up his name.
Jesus, I haven't thought about him in a while.
Ashante the Adonis and Nikita Lyons and Carmen Petrovich. That scene happened, Nate.
It did.
Is that all?
Yeah.
On that one?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of started teasing it last week, with Nikita Lyons walking past Ashante and Carmen and being like, and she said something to him like, "Hey, you never responded to my text," or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. It's there. I'm not really invested in it. It's something for them to do, I guess. And you know what? And it hasn't given us Nikita Lyons in the ring, so
right. That's a major plus. But she will be in the ring.
She was last week, but I guess she was last week. At least tonight.
Okay. Well, Brian emailed us this. Ava needs to wear flat shoes. She towers over several wrestlers. Last week, I saw an interview for Ariana Grace. Honestly, I forgot about her. She was doing great work as the beauty queen of NXT. I had not forgotten about her. I miss her. I don't know why she's not on TV. Although, where do you wedge her in at this point? Brian continues. When Tony D'Angelo wins the... Oh, yeah. I said that already. Quick question. What should WWE do with Obafemi after he eliminates 8 wrestlers in the 2025 Royal Rumble? Should he go to Raw or SmackDown? I'm thinking Raw to bump up Netflix ratings. Thanks. And don't forget to listen to the Torch VIP exclusive podcast NXT 8 years back. I feel like you could put him on any show, because they're both going to need another hour worth of content to fill. We don't know what promotional spots will look like on Netflix. I don't know what to expect. Are we going to have just 3 hours where you really can't go to the bathroom? Or are they going to have
commercial
some
breaks?
kind of,
yeah.
Will there be promo spots where they'll do commercials for their own content? What will they do? Anyway, I think Obafemi is going to be fine on either show, but I think you put him in a place where you can put off Femi versus Roman for as long as possible. Because if Femi works out in the way that they want, they're going to want to have that bullet in the chamber. So I think you put him on Raw to make sure that doesn't start happening accidentally too early. Nate?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think either way they go, I mean, he's gonna succeed. I mean, he is a phenomenal talent. So as we've seen in NXT, I think he's gonna hit the main roster running. They're gonna book him as a monster, and he's just gonna plow through people, just like he did at NXT. I think, as Brian, I think kind of jokingly said, eliminates 8 wrestlers in the Rumble this year. I think the Rumble is a great place to actually debut him, give him that Kane spot, and let him just eliminate person after person after person. Maybe it is 8. I think that's is that the record? 8? I don't remember. I know Kane held it for a while with the most eliminations.
It's like 13 or 14, and I think it's Roman.
Is it up to that now?
Yeah.
Okay. I know Kane held it for a while at like 8 or 9.
Somebody
So
beat Roman.
yeah, but
Kane's I think was 11 in 2001. Oh well,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, whatever it was. But yeah, I think that's a good place to debut him.
Okay, I believe, folks, that is our show. I'm Kelly Wells. You can find me on Blue Sky at other Kelly Wells or on Instagram at spookymilk.games, I think is right. Nate?
Well, I don't have a Blue Sky, but I might. I'm thinking about it because, like, I don't know. Everybody else is doing it, so I might do that. If I do, I'll let you know next week. But for right now, check the things I do out at nadelindberg.com.
All right. Cheers. And we will see you in 7.
Peace.